Welcome to the basement, one dream, 3 mics, street dad just navigated life. Follow and subscribe and come chill and vibe, man. Now get ready, cause the basement is live.
Welcome back to the basement, where it's top level content from the lower level. We just knocked out a great exclusive interview with YouTube sensation from the Elite Rejects, Ghost, or TJ Hamster, or I know him as simply George. So how you guys feel about that episode?
Or Jerry Flat.
Mud Flash. Billy Gold.
The Gold.
Man, I got to be on the lookout for some 65s for him. That's what I know.
That's right. That's all I know.
Got to be on the lookout for 2 65s.
2 65s. So I felt like that episode went really good.
It did.
We're going to transition, though. We're going to throw a little monkey wrench into our what we have been doing here lately. We've been talking about folklore, Appalachian folklore, and West Virginia folklore for a couple weeks now. And we're actually one of the episodes here this week is going to be about the Flatwoods Monster. But right now, we're going to talk about something that I feel like needs to be talked about. It's it's just something that I feel like needs to be talked about. And the title of this episode is simply going to be The Problem with Youth Sports in America right now. What do you guys think?
I think there's a laundry list of problems with youth sports right now. Honestly, that's just my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the biggest things that I view as the problem with youth sports is everybody wants to be involved in youth sports, but nobody wants to be involved in youth sports.
Yep. Yeah, everybody wants to, be on the sidelines and all this other stuff, but doesn't want to put in the work behind the scenes that you got to put into.
Yeah, exactly. One of my biggest pet peeves, though, is, we coach Smurf level. You coach...
I've coached every level.
Yeah, you coached every level. So, but mainly on the Smurf level, that bothers me is we spend this time in practice to teach these kids, and these kids are anywhere from preschool to first grade. Second grade in this actual Smurf division. And what I mean by that is these are like from 5-year-olds to 8-year-olds that are learning the game. In youth sports, for example, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, now anything. In the youth level like this, it is a time to develop a love for the sport. It's a time to learn the fundamentals, to learn the game overall, and to let the kids know that, hey, this is something, even if they're struggling at it, they have other areas they can learn from.
Well, and I think that a big thing that people forget about, especially at the Smurf level, these kids are still learning how to learn.
Exactly. They're still babies.
They are. I mean, you got 5 to 7-year-olds, and that's a huge age gap as far as maturity goes, too. And that's something that you see a lot of in sports. And, and then you got, which makes, I know that all youth sports can be difficult to coach, but I feel like that's one of the biggest things with the Smurf area because, every kid learns at different rates, especially at that level. They don't even know how they need to learn yet. So you've got to basically learn what how they learn before you can even start teaching them.
Exactly. And another thing that I meant is when we're in a game, for example, it's so rushed. Like everybody's like, oh, it's all about the kids, it's all about the kids, it's all about the kids. Then you get to a game, and the whole game is like, we got to get this game done as fast as we can. We got to start it right now. You got to run a play right now. Instead of being able to stop, line your kids up, explain to them what's going on. We're not playing for an NFL Super Bowl.
Yeah.
This is a learning experience.
I've literally been in games where they're like, don't call any timeouts.
Exactly.
Because we're on a time crunch. And I understand we only have so many officials. They have other fields to go to for the day. I get all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But we got to keep in mind that we're dealing with children here.
Exactly.
Right.
So, continue what you're saying, but I felt like throwing that in there.
It's just very aggravating in that you get to this aspect. You're trying to teach these kids. You're trying to instill in them, what it is to be a leader, yet the people that are in position to be the leaders don't model the way they're supposed to be. And I say that is a lot of times with youth sports, they get on the field, dropping F-bombs, cussing, grabbing the kids by the face mask, arguing with the officials. And I'm not saying there is a time to argue with calls for the officials.
Yeah.
If you feel like your team was cheated in a certain way, then yes. But every single time something happens, you run on the field and what type of example are you showing to these kids?
Well, and there's also a right and wrong way to go about it too.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's a big part of it too. And you got to remember, you know, as a coach, you want to go out and you want to win every game, but you've got to remember that, you know, you got all these kids that's looking up to you.
Exactly.
And you've got it, and you have to make a decision right then and there to show them how do you react in anger, because how you react, they're going to remember that.
Exactly.
Because, you know, I've got a kid, you know, I've got Levi, and there's one thing about him, you know, I could tell him all the stuff in the world. The one time I stubbed my toe, drop a cuss word, that's the one word he's going to remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I got a perfect example of that, of something that happened on the football field this season, is we scored a touchdown at Graham, and we go in for the 2-point conversion. My quarterback is laying in the end zone. Two referees say it's good for the 2-point conversion to tie the game. The other two referees never signaled. They converge in a group. I walk up and I see my quarterback in the end zone, so I immediately throw up the hands to my sideline and say, hey, 2 points good, it's a tie ball game. We're in the fourth quarter. I think there's like, a minute and a half to go?
It's not much left.
Not much to go. The referees are talking. They're talking with the other coaches, and then they look no good. I'm like, how's that no good?
Yeah.
So I'm starting to argue with the ref, like, hey, obviously I can see he's laying down right there. I'm getting frustrated. My kids are circled around me. And I hear them, I'm sitting there trying to, like, argue my case with this referee. And then I hear a couple of my kids say, yeah, that's bull crap. And I'm like, yo, wait a minute. Time out, guys. We don't talk like that. I said, you are players. You respect the adults. You respect the officials. You respect the coaches. At that time, and you can ask Hunter, he was on the field with me, I stepped away from the refs and said, that's fine. I get it. I took my kids and started lining them back up in defense on that sideline, and I left it alone.
Yeah, but I'm not going to lie. Whenever you took them, I exchanged a few more words. I definitely could have handled that a little bit better.
But I also had, on the sideline after the game, I actually had a parent tell me, you didn't have those kids back out there because I didn't fully keep challenging the refs. But them kids were staring at me and reacting the same way I was. I made the choice to show them what a leader was and what a responsible person would do. Is I took them away from the situation and said, hey, look, it happens. Everything in life isn't fair.
Well, I mean, and
this is what happens. Let's move on. Let's get this defensive stop. Let's get the ball back. Let's go score a touchdown and win the game.
Well, and I will add to this, you know, yeah, we had some issues with that, but we did take it to, like, the owner of the league of our team, and they pushed it up, and that ref didn't referee any more games for that league.
Well,
so, you know, that just goes to show, you know, yeah, we may have had that bad call in the game, but, you know, I'm not saying we handled it perfectly, but we did go through the right channels to get it as rectified as we could for what happened. Because, you know, it's not an NFL college game where you can throw the red flag and challenge a play.
Yeah.
I mean, all you're gonna do is end up getting kicked out, and then your kids aren't gonna have a coach.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was getting at was, you know, speaking from experience, there's only so much you can argue with the ref before he's like, see you later.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, or, you know, he may not kick you out of the game, but then the president of the league is like, hey, dude, you do that again, you ain't coaching here anymore.
Exactly.
And that's all for challenging the ref to the point. I mean, in my situation, what happened was I got too upset, and that's my fault. Could have handled it differently, you know. But I feel like sometimes we as coaches, you know, we should be able to step off to the side and talk to ref man to man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
not be in this situation, which, like you said, we don't have 10,000 cameras where we can challenge a call. You know, it's pretty much how they saw it, and that's all you got. You know, but there's a lot of youth coaches out there that lose their mind, and their players' actions and attitude reflects how they act.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do. And you could tell. And I want to hit on something with the referees. And I'm not hating on referees. That is a hard job. I get it.
Yeah, it is. Every call you make is gonna make one side mad and one side happy. You know, every single call they make.
I have a lot of friends that are umpires for softball, and I got a lot of friends. I've made a lot of referee friends. So don't think I'm coming at you. But if you're going to put that striped shirt on, you need to have an understanding that you need to have thick skin. Yep. People aren't going to agree with everything you say, and I get it. You have rules that you have to follow, and that's great. However, if somebody says something to you, you don't need to react in anger, and you're not the king on the field. For example, I had this issue up in Charleston, West Virginia, in this travel football league, and where we had our players getting grabbed by the face mask and slammed down on the ground. I was on the football field coaching defense, and I watched it happen twice in front of a referee. One of my players had his face mask grabbed and slammed down on the ground, right at the referee's feet, twice. And I was like, the second time I come up to him and said, hey man, look. And our kids were being rough too. I'm not saying. I just come to her and said, hey man, this game's getting a little rough. Right. I said, can we stop it for a minute and talk to the kids about calming it down? Still, 5-year-old, well, this is the 7U league, so 7 and 8-year-olds. I said, can we talk to the kids and calm this down? He said, what are you trying to say? I'm not doing my job? I said, I didn't say that. I said, hey, I'm bringing your awareness. Both sides are getting a little out of control. Let's nip this in the bud while we can.
That's an ego problem.
Before we get it. And he said, if you don't think I can do my job, why don't you put this sweatshirt on? I said, well, this jersey on. I said, well, since you're going to act like this, yeah, you aren't doing your job because it happened in front of you twice.
That's an ego problem.
He told
100%.
me, this is close to the end of the first half, he told me it would be best if I didn't step back on the field for the second half. All because I tried to bring to his awareness that we should probably, all I wanted to do was just say, hey, let's tell the kids they need to knock it off. I'll tell my kids, that coach can tell their kids. That's all I wanted to do. So what I'm saying is if you're a referee, stop with having such an ego. You are not a king. You are an official that's supposed to be partial and supposed to play the rules. If somebody challenges your rules, you use your knowledge and your ability to defend what call you made in a respectful manner. Yeah, coaches aren't going to come at you in a respectful manner, but that's your job. You're getting paid. I'm a volunteer. You're getting paid. You need to act that way. And I'm not blaming. There's a lot of, and we'll go into this segue. There's a lot of butthole coaches out there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
For lack of better words, piss poor coaches in youth sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a huge problem in Little League and youth around the country.
Yeah.
It is.
I think a lot of that derives from coaches that are trying to stroke their own ego.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess I could say trying to relive their glory days and
Exactly.
through their kids. They're trying to live through their kids. You know, I'm 36 years old at this point. My football days are long behind me.
There's 37 you out there.
Yeah, I would get destroyed. My knees and back ain't built for all that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, man, I think that we know some personally that are just out there to stroke their own ego. They can say what they want to say, but they're out there for their own benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've heard so many coaches, I just want to win every game. I want a ring. I want a championship. I want a trophy. It's not about that, man.
No, this is about, and the reality is, with youth sports, it's coming down to them learning life lessons.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I heard it before I was even a coach, and I heard it honestly as a kid. Uncoachable kids become unemployable adults.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, whenever you take on the responsibility as a youth coach, you're taking on that responsibility of teaching them work ethic.
Yeah.
If you just say, well, this kid's really talented, so I'll let some of the stuff slide that they're doing.
No.
Well, then you're teaching them in their entire life that, well, if you're good at something, then rules don't apply to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like, there's definitely like, comes down to a lack of discipline at times, but then there's also the catch-22 if there's some coaches where there's too much discipline, and there's definitely a line that you've got to walk with that.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, when I was still new to the coaching game, I mean, I'd coached basketball for a rec league. I feel like rec basketball and rec football are two completely different worlds.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can say that for certain.
But when I first came into coaching football, which football is the sport that I'm most passionate about, you know, I lost my temper on a call during a game. And actually, the president of the league came to me, or not the league, of our organization, came to me and was like, hey, you're teaching these kids how to deal with adversity. And I never thought about it like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know? And then from then on, I mean, yeah, I've still gotten mad about stuff because I'm still human.
Right.
You know, and if I feel like my kids are getting the shaft, then I'm going to get mad. Because when I'm their coach, all those kids are my kids, not just my kids that might be on the
Right.
team. You know? And so if I feel like they're getting the shaft, I'm going to get upset. But when I was told, hey, you're teaching these kids how to deal with this stuff, it changed my whole perspective. You know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, you do have to teach these kids, you know. And the thing is, you never know what those kids' home life is like either, you know. There's maybe some kids, you know, they've got great home lives, you know, they've got great parents and stuff like that. But then you got some kids that may not have good role models.
Exactly.
So they get into sports and, you know, and you hear pro athletes talking about it a lot, you know, it just takes that one coach to be able to change everything.
It does. And it also, on the flip side of that, it takes one person believing in you.
Exactly.
One person believing in you to completely change your outlook on everything. But it also takes one coach to ruin a kid's ambition and will and drive in the entire sport.
Mm-hmm.
If you are that coach that constantly shows up to practice and all you do is down kids, calling them sissies, saying they're no good, you run them to death, you're not going to get anything out of your kids. You're going to get what you put in. You put in trash, that's what you're going to get in back. I don't believe in that. I've seen it so many times where kids who are great athletes and great kids, they just refuse to play because they're like, I'm not playing for that person.
Yeah.
Not going to play for that person. And, you know, you need to be in youth sports for the kids. You don't need to be in it for yourself.
Yeah.
If all you're in it's to win games, I'm sorry. You need to leave. It's
Right.
not for you. If you think you're that great of a coach, why are you volunteering to do it? You know,
I feel like with youth sports, one of the biggest problems that the coaches that get into it forget, youth sports is about development.
exactly.
It is
It's development.
your goal should not be to try to win the championship. You go undefeated, this, that, and the other. It should be that your worst player becomes one of your better players. You should be spending time wanting to get all the players up to the certain level. You know, all these coaches want to say, well, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Well, then that means that, you know, going by what they're saying, they need to be working with their weakest players and building them up.
Yeah.
But, you know, we see it time and time again. That takes too much work. So that player's just going to get the bare minimum playing time.
Exactly.
And
3 play minimum. That's all I need to give them is 3 plays.
And that's not how they're going to grow, you know, because you see it, you know, practice, yeah, that's wherever you get, like, you know, your time to work on stuff. But they're not getting experience until they're in the game doing it.
Yeah.
Because practice is still a more controlled environment than a game.
Oh, yeah. I feel like one of my favorite things as a coach is watching the kid come out that's never played football before. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of the season, the transformation that they've made.
Exactly.
That is one of my favorite things about being a coach.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, for example, this year I had a kid never stepped on a football field for an organized game of football in his entire life. And he's, I think he's 11, 12 years old, this kid.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I hate to say it like this, but he was the tackling dummy, more or less, when the season started. And he went from that to getting a lot of playing time because he figured it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love that moment when it clicks for these kids. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite things as a youth coach.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm a great coach. There's a lot of things I need to learn. There's a lot of things I need to work on. But one big thing that I focus on is I believe 100% in the psychology of the game. And, well, before I dig into that, I tell every parent that I coach, especially this year, where I took over the Smurf team, is I tell every parent, I said, I want to win every single game. I'd love for the kids to win every single game. I said, but I can't guarantee you that. What I can guarantee you is that these kids are going to know the fundamentals of football. I said, they're going to love football. I said, and the main important thing, they're going to learn how to be leaders. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm going to teach what being a leader is. I'm going to teach what being a role model is. And I'm going to teach on how you respond to adversity. And I done stuff in a different type of way, and I got a lot of flack for it, didn't I? Mm-hmm. And at the end of, we'd play games on Saturday. On Mondays, a lot of times you'd have coaches, if you got beat on Saturday, you come in on Monday, oh, I'm going to run them, they didn't do this, they didn't listen, I'm going to run the crap out of them. No. I took them, and we sat down in the middle of the field, and we sat down in a big circle on the ground, and I said, hey, name one thing you did good and one thing you want to work on this week. Mm-hmm. And they'd get through, and a couple of them, they'd be a little shy to say what they did good. I said, what do you want to work on? A couple of them said, I need to work on tackling. I need to work on blocking. I need to work on just taking snaps. I need to work on snapping. And I said, okay. We got around the circle. I said, you 4 that want to work on tackling, you go with that coach, you work on tackling. You 5 that want to work on blocking, you go with that coach and work on blocking. You want to learn how to snap the ball, you go over there, we're going to snap the ball. This is your time for you to pick out what you want to work on. And I focused on that. And I'm not saying I'm a great coach, but I've read a lot of psychology books, and it works. What that done is that gave those kids a voice. That let them buy into the team, let them feel like they're part of the team, and let them take control of a part of it. Mm-hmm. When you do that, that makes them feel like they are a part of something. They're buying into it. Instead of coming in and beating them down and telling them, you're not worth anything. You didn't listen. How come you can't even go on 2? That stuff does not work.
No.
I don't care what any coach tells you. You need to have an understanding, and you need to have a respect for your children that are playing for you. Because once they step on that gate to that field, they are my children. I had 2 boys on that team, but I love the rest of them just as much as my two sons on that team. And you won't find anybody else in that field that cared more about those kids than me. And Hunter was in the locker room with me on my last official speech after we lost in the playoffs. I was choking back tears, was I not? Yeah. Telling these kids bye that I wasn't going to see them on Monday. It was killing me, and I tried so hard not to cry in front of them because I knew I'm not going to see them on that field no more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It is.
That's the thing that I think people overlook when you're a youth coach, is that you watch these kids progress through the steps. Mm-hmm. And, for example, you said you had your 2 boys on your team. I had my 2 boys on my team. Mm-hmm. So when we lost our playoff game, my oldest boy is going to middle school. Exactly. So that was his last youth game period. Mm-hmm. But not just my own kid, but all these other kids that are going on to middle school, or that, we ain't going to have practice Monday, so we can come out here and have a fun Monday practice, That's the emotional part about it that I think a lot of people don't think about when they get into this thing, as you get attached to these kids.
You do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's and a lot of people I don't think also realize just how much goes into it. Like, I can't even tell you how many nights me and Drew were messaging back and forth up until about midnight, if not later, just trying to think about, well, what's our game plan for this week with practice? This player's doing this better. Hey, I think we need to work on this player with this, That's like a lot of time and effort that's taken away from stuff that we could be doing with our own families, but that we're wanting to try to give back to the players that are on our team.
Our lives are consumed during football season because we play. I mean, I've coached the season where we played Saturday and Sunday. Mm-hmm. So you practice all week long except maybe Friday because you got the high school games. Mm-hmm. And then Saturday and Sunday, man, you're at the field. Exactly. And then even this season though, we just played on. We had maybe 1 or 2 weekends we played on Sunday.
We had 2 Saturdays.
But we didn't play We didn't play Saturday though.
We had a couple weekends where we played Saturday and Sunday.
Oh yeah, because we had to delay a game or something.
Well, we had to go. We played at home and then we turned around with Peterstown.
Yeah.
When it was like 95 degrees.
Oh yeah.
I'll never forget that weekend.
But I mean, even still, when you only have one game that weekend, your life is consumed when you're a coach.
It goes back to what I said earlier. my main point is everybody wants to be involved in youth sports, but nobody wants to be involved in youth sports. And what I say is we have games that kick off at noon, right? Mm-hmm. Well, as a coach, I'm there at 10. Our games didn't kick off at noon. They kicked off at what, 11?
10. Some of them did.
Yeah, 10. So 10. I'm there at the field 2 hours before, walking the field. You know, we're getting the kids to show up, getting ready, warming them up, hyping them up. We do our little walk on the field. You know, we before that, you know, there's a bunch of us there getting all the trash picked up from the high school game that they didn't pick up. We're getting the field straight, tidy, so when people come up there, they're not like, whoa, what's going on here in Montcalm? And we do that. We get on the field. We warm the kids up. We run through the game and everything. After that, we're working the concession stands. I'm running the chains for the next 2 games. After the games are over with, I'm helping clean up trash, load it up in the trash cans, throw it in the back of the truck, and it's the same people doing it. And, you know, you're literally there from 8 in the morning until about 5:30 in the day.
Yeah.
You know, going
That's
on.
an entire work day.
Yeah.
It's a work day.
It is.
And I'm not complaining about it. I love every bit of it. But it goes back to everybody wants to be in youth sports, but nobody wants to be in youth sports.
I think we've probably all experienced the guy that wants to sign up to coach because his kid's on the team. And,
Yeah.
and then
They just sit back and may not even show up.
they're
to
more or less
practices
in the way.
Yeah. Well, that leads into the next thing. Another huge problem in youth sports is what we all like to call daddy ball.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I was so paranoid by that this year because I had both of my sons playing for me. And, you know, I never coached my sons. I've coached a higher level, so I dropped down to Smurf because both my boys are going to be on the same team this year. And it was the only time they're going to be on the same team till middle school. So I was like, I want to coach it. But when it comes time to name positions, I did not name positions, did I?
No.
I let all the other coaches name positions because I was like, what if I say I want my boy to play quarterback or running back? And they're like, oh, he just wants his boy to play quarterback. And one of my oldest sons did play quarterback, but I didn't choose it. And I told him, actually, before the season started, he told me, I want to be your quarterback. And I said, no. And he said, what do you mean, no? I said, you don't get to be quarterback because I'm your dad. I said, you have to put in the work and show up and be the best out there on the field every single day. I said, that's what you got to do. So we started working out at home and getting better, working on all his little drills at home. You know, I helped him out a little bit of it. And then when it come time to go through all the drills and stuff, you know, then we started naming positions. And they're like, who do you want in your backfield? And I'm like, I'm not picking. I said, you guys give me. I picked one player.
Yeah.
To be in the backfield. And, you know, because we had five running backs. And we ran a different type of system where we alternated 2 quarterbacks constantly every other play.
Yeah.
Because those 2 kids that played quarterback were just as good as each other. And it was hard to separate. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But I let the other coaches pick because didn't want to daddy ball it. But you will literally have coaches that will run their kid at quarterback or running back, and that's all they do is run their kid, even if their kid's having a bad day.
Yeah. Luckily, on the team I had this year, I think every one of the coaches, trying to think, every one of us had a son on our team. Mm-hmm. But it didn't matter. Like, if this one's son messed up, hey, you can come sit over here with me for a little while if you want to. You know, that kind of thing. It was never like, oh, you're my kid, you get to do whatever you want to do. I was fortunate in that all the guys I coached with were great dudes, you know. But we played against teams where I heard the other coach being like, oh, you know, obviously I knew that was his son, and he's like, oh, well, you know, this or that, because it's his son. You know, like, the other kids don't get a fair chance because head coach or whatever the case is, you know, oh, my son's the best quarterback since Joe Montana.
Exactly.
You know, and he's not. You know, no shade to the kid. You know, the kid's a great ball player. I've seen it time and time again. The kid's great. He'd probably be better somewhere else. Like, he don't have to be the quarterback. He don't have to be the running back.
Right.
Put him on the line. The kid's a great blocker. Right. You have to have linemen. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't understand the whole concept behind it. Of course, I mean my boys are linemen anyway, so I mean it's you know
it's something that's not taught. That is another thing is everybody wants to be the running back, everybody wants to be the quarterback, everybody wants to be a wide receiver. If you don't have an offensive line, it doesn't matter if you got Tom Brady back there.
yeah.
If he's getting hit every single play, it don't matter. I tell my kids all the time, before every single game, I walk down that offensive line and tell them that you're the most important person on the field. Without you, nothing else matters.
Yeah.
So that pulls in, like, I was fortunate. We had amazing parents this year.
We did.
Amazing parents this year. However, one problem with youth sports is some parents have unrealistic expectations for their kids.
Oh, absolutely.
And what I mean by that is, and I'm not saying anything towards kids, but if your kid is a kindergartner at 5 years old and he's just now learning the game of football, he does not need to be a running back. I mean, some kids,
Right.
have that natural ability and that natural understanding. A lot don't. So naturally, we're probably going to go with the 7 or 8 year old that's played for 2 years that already understands the blocking scheme, the running plays, and everything.
Yeah.
So if a coach is taking your kid, and I'm not saying all this, not every single kid, not every single coach, because you do have coaches that do not have kids' interest in mind. And I will say it again, you have coaches that do not have your kids' interest in mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many times I can say that. However, there's a lot of good coaches out there that say, hey, I know your kid may have, watch that mouse there. I know it was hovering over that. And there's a lot of people that, a lot of coaches that will move your kid from, say, that he was playing running back, put him at wide receiver. And you're like, no, my kid's a star running back. Let that kid play wide receiver for a couple games. That coach sees them in practice all day, running certain things. That kid may be the next Tavon Austin at wide receiver. Might be the next Mike Evans. I'm not
Not talking about the one that's literally hanging up on the wall. Okay, I see how it is.
Is that one?
Yeah.
Is he Hall of Famer yet?
Is Mike Evans yet?
It won't be. Who has the most 1,000-yard receiving yards consecutively?
Who else has he had on his team? This is about the kids right now.
He had Mike Evans twice. I mean, Tom Brady 2 times. he had James Winston before that.
We're about to get another look at them two arguing over the Bengals
We're
and
gonna go. We're gonna
Buccaneers.
talk about youth sports again. Then I lost where I was at. Another thing is like I said, just the total rushing and just the blatant disregard of this isn't about championships.
Yeah.
You're not going to have your name in a banner hanging from the walls. This is about development for kids, and people forget that. I've had a run-in with the coach that all he cared about was his kid, and the kids I coached would kill all these babies on the field. And now you have kids that don't even want to play because that man made those comments in front of those kids. And, and it's not, I'm not going to say any names, no direct shots, but if that's the way you feel, then you need to go on. You don't need to be in youth sports because all you did is you just turned away about 5 or 6 kids that are going to be great football players. And they're probably never going to play football again.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's going to take a lot of coaching to get them back there on the field.
Yeah. I want to preface this by saying my parents this season were great. I don't think I've ever really had any quote-unquote problem parents. Another problem is that when you come to me as a coach preseason and you're like, my son's a wide receiver, my son's a quarterback, I don't know what your son is until I watch him every practice.
Yep.
I'm not going to say, based on what you say, that your son should be my quarterback. Or your son should be my center or any other position on the field because I'm going to watch what he does in practice. I say son or daughter. I've coached girls before, too, that were great football players.
Oh, yeah.
Arguably, one of our best players on our team was a girl.
Yeah, hey.
2 years in a row.
I had a girl last season.
When we coached Pee Wee together, she was one of the, if not the best defensive player we had.
She was a nasty defensive end, dude. She was tough.
Yeah.
But anyways, let the coaches, if you feel like the coach has done something to your kid or to wrong your kid, then absolutely you're going to take up for your kid. But until that happens, let that person coach your child. Don't come out there and tell me my son's not a lineman. Or right now he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He is right now if he wants to be on the field with this team because that's where he fits our scheme the best.
Exactly.
Right.
You don't. Some parents do understand schemes and different schematics of the game.
Well, and here's
Most
the
of them
thing.
don't.
And something else that that they're not thinking about, you're teaching them how to be a lineman at a young age. They may hit a growth spurt or something like that, slim down, get faster and something like that. Well, now, because they spent time as a lineman in youth sports, they know how to block, they know
Yeah.
the footwork. So that opens them up for tight end or fullback. That opens up for more opportunities. So you got to, by kids learning these different positions at a young age, it's teaching them, the fundamentals of every position. So whenever they go to, because everybody's body changes, there were some kids whenever I was in school, they started out as a lineman, like in the Pee Wee and stuff like that. By high school, they were running backs.
Yeah.
Because, just you never know how kids are going to grow, what they're going to grow into.
Yeah.
Even if they're your kid, you may think that you have an idea of how their body types are going to change, but you don't really know.
Yeah. Well, it's like an example. I can't talk. An example is like for my nephew. When he was a kid, dude, he was tall and like husky. Like this boy was big. Now he's a string bean. He's like 6'1" at 15 years old, and he's probably don't weigh 120 pounds.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you said, kids change, and I don't understand what the stigma is with being a lineman anyway.
I don't
understand
either.
it
They're like y'all said, they're the most important on the field. I used to tell my kids my line because I was a line coach before every single game. It starts with you. If you don't do your job, we don't score points.
No, you don't.
I mean, get down the field and block. If it's a pass play, pass block, pass protect the quarterback. Let him get his pass off. It starts with you. If you don't do your job, then we might as well just pack it up and go to the house.
Yeah, because if
You
you
know?
don't have a line, you don't have a team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every kid wants to be the quote-unquote superstar, but when you're looking at it from my perspective, I would rather have less than top-notch backs and a top-notch line
Oh, yeah.
because I can do more with that than I can have an all-star running backs and nobody to block for them.
Well, I mean, like one of our first episodes, we had that debate about, if somebody, would you rather take $1 million cash or, take $10 million for a chance to score to get 5 yards in an NFL game?
Yeah.
And all of us mutually decided it depends on which line you
Yeah.
had. Like,
Who's
if
the
you had a
offensive
good line, I'll take that chance anytime.
Yeah.
You give me a bad line, now I'm gonna just take that $1 million cash.
Yeah, I mean, there's a stigma with it, but anyway, that's not really what we're talking about. But I mean, let coaches coach your kid. You don't need to come down out of the stands and hang over the fence to tell us what we're doing wrong in the middle of a game.
No, especially whenever they had the exact same opportunity to volunteer.
Exactly.
And another thing is if the coach is telling your kid to do something, let the coach tell him. Don't hang over the fence and say, no, you need to blitz this play. No, there's a reason why I'm telling your kid to stay home. Because I know they're about to run that double reverse, and when your kid blitzes, he's going to get overran because he's going to over pursue, and then there's going to be nobody out there.
You always have
Not
that
a
guy.
direct shot, but a direct shot.
You always have that guy on the sideline that was all-state in high school in 1984, and he's over there trying to call defensive or offensive plays. And again, luckily for me, I didn't have any experiences like that this season. I think maybe y'all did, and maybe the other team, did. But I see it when we play against other teams. I see it at games more. Like, I didn't have any issues at practice, but then at games, you got extended family comes and different things, and whoever thinks that they know more than the coach, and maybe they do. Maybe they do know more than the coach does. But why didn't you sign up to volunteer just like I did?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing is a lot of these fields we play on, the fans is right on top of the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are a fan at a youth game, a youth football game, a youth basketball, anything like that, cheer your kid on and then shut up. I'm being real. Don't yell at the other team out there. I had literally grown adults yelling at my kids, calling them names. Man, you're a grown adult. We'll move on from that. But one thing that really bothers me is this whole kick that people are on. I'm going to ask y'all right real quick. Participation trophies. Are they a problem?
I don't think so, personally.
Well, maybe a participation trophy, but not individual trophies. And I think there's a difference between the two. Just saying a kid shows up to practice and gets a trophy, that's one thing. But, like one of the things that me and Andrew talked about doing was we wanted to give individual awards because, each player does contribute something. And I feel like it's important to highlight what they contributed.
So you think everybody gets a trophy for a specific thing? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes, but not a participation trophy. I know that sounds complicated, but
No,
in my
I get
head,
it.
there's a difference between the two. And I feel
Yeah.
like you need to award each player because each individual player brings something different to a team.
That's true.
And I feel like that should be rewarded, not just you were a part of a team that won a championship.
Here's how I feel about it. I have no problem with participation trophies. And let me expand on that. I played sports in the 90s. So
Yeah.
every adult that's listening to this right now says, oh, that's bullcrap. We didn't get. Yes, you did. I
Yeah.
played sports in the 90s.
Yeah.
I played on a championship basketball team. I played on a basketball team that didn't win any games. I got the same amount of trophies,
Yeah.
just like y'all did. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, if you played a sport, you got a letter. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about it. If a kid shows up to practice, is showing up, is running, shows up to the games, gets in the games, they're part of the team. They should be recognized for being part of the team. So therefore, yes, you should get some form of trophy, a medal, a ribbon, some form of saying, hey, thank you for being on the team. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. Now, you go into who was the best offensive player? There you go. Who was your best defensive player? Who had the most heart? Who was the most improved? Who was the overall MVP? Who was the team leader?
Yeah.
Then you break it down into recognizing the kids that went above and beyond. But I have no problem with giving a kid a trophy for being on a team. So for anybody that says, we didn't get participation trophies, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
I still have at my parents' house. They still got all my trophies from the '90s. Like you said, we played sports in the
Man,
'90s.
we had football trophies like that tall, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't see my bottom hand.
Yeah.
But I mean,
We did
what
play
were
on
they,
some
like
good teams though.
2.5, 3 foot.
Yeah, I mean,
trophies?
but kids are kids, and they like to be recognized.
Exactly. That
Right.
all it takes is when a kid walks by, and they see that mom and dad put their trophy up in the living room, they're like, "Man, I earned that."
Yeah.
And what is wrong with building a kid's confidence? What is we have as a society that's so against reinforcing positivity and building somebody's confidence? Why is that so wrong?
Well, since we're talking about recognizing kids, I want to kind of deviate from our path that we're on right now, and I want to recognize some of our kids from around here. We have a travel league around here, and they actually went to the flood affected areas, and they had their kids give back to the community by handing out meals. So I want to give a shout out to the 2 Live crew because
Absolutely.
that's the way you teach these young men and women, if they have any girl players, I'm not sure. That's how you teach them to be better adults. You're instilling in them, let's help our community. Let's give back to the people that give to us.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to shout them out really quick. But
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. That was
definitely.
a whole lot. That was a whole lot. Thank you for communicating with us so we can help you guys out as well. Thank you, guys. That's exactly that right there is what it's all about, because they are teaching those young children how to be leaders, how to be role models, how to care about their neighbors, and how to be good humans. And that's a lost art in today.
Man, I'm gonna tell you. I know, a lot of colleges and stuff like that. Once they get older, whenever, talent's everywhere now.
Yeah.
And we've been blessed lately. We've had some kids, going to the collegiate level. We've got Sean Martin that participating in the combine this week. There's a lot of talent in the area. But what starts separating these players and what the colleges will start looking at, they can find somebody of equal talent as these players. But what they want is players that they see that are giving back to the community, doing different things. They want, because that's the stuff that shows that they're a leader. talent doesn't mean anything if you're uncoachable. If you think that, well, you're privileged to have me on your team, they'll be like, you want to bet?
Yeah. Yeah,
they've got better players on their team already. You know, they're wanting they want people that, because that also shows that they're going to put in that extra work to build and get better themselves. And, you know, so little things like this that we're touching on, you know, it may sound like we're just being petty, nitpicking, stuff like that. It's because there's a bigger picture behind it. And I think that's what a lot of parents don't see.
Yeah.
A lot of parents just see, well, my kid's the best, so they need to be playing. Well, yeah, but your kid also only came to one practice and then moped around and only wanted to, you know, do everything halfway the whole practice.
Yeah.
And in the long run, yeah, they may have started the season, and we saw that a lot in our team. There was a lot of players that started off at the top, but by the end of the season, they were middle to the pack, if not lower level, because they didn't want to put in the work in practice.
Yep.
And that happened, and that's one of the things that you need to start seeing as a parent. Like, okay, well, why is that happening? Instead of, well, it's the coach's fault. Well, maybe that kid needs a foot up their butt and saying, no, you need to go out there and you need to give it your all in practice.
Yeah. I feel like another thing too is that I had kids this year. If I had to bet on it, I would have bet they would have quit. Mm-hmm. You know, we as a youth coach, if any youth coach is listening to this, I think they'll agree with this. When you start your season, you start, you know, conditioning drills, different things. Mm-hmm. You start, you know, hey, have you ever played football before? What position did you play? So you can kind of start breaking it down into groups. You kind of have some foot races to see who your faster kids are for your backfield, yada, yada, yada. But you also have those kids you're like, this kid ain't going to make it. Mm-hmm. And then to see that kid actually work harder than some of your quote-unquote superstars, and they actually stick it out the whole season and the improvement, like that's the best. That's feeling. Second to none right there, you know. So, but to touch on what you were saying, the parents don't think far enough ahead to think about when a college comes calling to this kid if they're good enough to play at that level, you know, whether it be Bluefield State or whether it be USC, you know, if that kid has a terrible attitude, they're not going to want that kid to play on their team because then they're just a liability. They're going to make the university look bad. They're going to make the team look bad when they're out here getting arrested and whatever else they're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, so push your kids to listen to their coaches. Push your kids to lose the attitude when they're on the football field. If you see that your kid is having an attitude all the time, step in. Like outside of football practice, step in and be like, hey, if you want to continue playing this sport that you like to play, you better drop that attitude and start listening to people. I'm sure maybe at y'all's team, y'all didn't have that issue too much.
We had a little bit of a bullying issue that was going on, actually not at football. It was going on at the school, and we actually had some school people, officials, actually say, hey, can y'all like kind of talk to these kids about bullying? So we had, you know, we broke it down, and we actually had a meeting with the kids, and we told them, hey, look, you know, everybody is the same. We're all the same. We're all equals. We are brothers and sisters. Because we had a little girl on our team. We are the same. We treat each other with respect, and you know we carry on. But one thing that I used to do is you have a lot of times when a kid has an attitude, or a kid's not trying his hardest, or a kid's just messing up. A lot of coaches just want to yell at them and scream at them and then force them to run 15, 20 laps. I kind of like doing it a different way. Yeah, the kid still ran if I've seen need fit. I'd pull the kid to the side and just have a conversation. Like, what's going on? Like, obviously something is going on that's causing this kid to be upset and to act out in a way. That's the way I view it. You may call me soft, but that's fine. I mean, I work in a profession where I see what happens when people are in a negative environment and get negativity thrown at them. So maybe I have a different outlook on everything. But with that being said, I do feel, you know, if there comes time to be hard, yeah, I'll be hard. But there's also times where I need to be that person. I'm the coach. My job, a coach, is to teach and to guide. And I need to teach that kid how to understand the sport and how to guide to be. When you are playing a sport, you're a leader to that school. You're a leader to the community. People are looking up to you. Them little kids. There's some kids that can't play sports. But they dream of playing sports, so they idolize the kids coming to school in their football jerseys.
Yeah.
I want you to, when it says generals across your shirt, I want you to be that general. So that's what I try to instill in. Like I said, I'm not saying I'm great. However, back to the problem in youth sports, you will have coaches that will go out there just with a terrible attitude, want to run the kids to death, talk down to them, and then turn around and get mad when the kid quits or the kids don't show up for the games or the practices. And they're like, well, I don't know why the kid don't want to be here. Well, probably because you was a butthole all day. Yeah, there is a such thing as hard coaching. I was a product of hard coaching in the late 90s and early 2000s. I have literally been knocked unconscious before by a coach. It happens. And that was great. Times have changed.
Yeah.
Times evolve. We must evolve.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, thankfully, I don't think thinking back on all the years that I've coached, I don't think I've ever really had a kid that had a terrible, terrible attitude. Mm-hmm. I mean, every human's going to get mad at some point.
Right.
You know, but.
I mean, and especially at that young an age, they don't know how to control it or express it whenever they get mad.
Right. But kind of to go off of what you said, like, you can't just always go straight to I'm gonna run you until you puke as discipline. Yeah. Some kids can run and run and run and run and run.
What if? And I'm not. What if that kid had a really bad day at school?
Yeah.
Like he literally, some kids just have bad days. You're not feeling good. You get in trouble at school. And it could have been as simple as the kid was talking when he wasn't supposed to. The teacher jumped on him. You know, it beats kids up.
Oh, yeah.
Then they go home, and maybe mommy and daddy's arguing or something in front of them, and they're tore up. Maybe somebody passed away, and then they get to practice as their only escape. And then when they get there, they're not feeling their best. I'm like, what's wrong with you, sissy? Why are you being a weenie? Go run me some laps, you wuss.
Yeah.
Like, what did you just do?
I mean, I feel like as coaches, I was going to say we're kind of like teachers. We are teachers.
You are teachers.
Not school teachers, but we're teachers. Mm-hmm. And it's just like teachers. We don't know what their home life's like you just said.
Exactly.
You know, I actually had some situations before where kid come to practice, kids not wanting to listen, kids wanting to be pretty much flat out defiant at this point.
Yeah.
And then I took kid to the side. I was like, man, what is going on? Like, this ain't who you normally are. And you know what ended up happening, man? He ended up crying and we ended up hugging it out. Kid was just having a bad day.
Exactly. I mean, it happens. We're humans.
Yeah. I looked at how long this one's been going on for, but one thing I do want to make sure that I get out there before we end this is the biggest thing whenever it comes to youth sports that I think that parents failed to remember, coaches failed to remember, referees failed to mention. Like, kids, we look at them as, well, they're just kids. They'll grow out of it or whatever. What they failed to remember, they are mini humans. And I think that's one of the most important things that you've got to remember with dealing with kids. They still have emotions, and they haven't had the years of experience of learning how to cope with emotions like you've had. They're still learning how to cope with their emotions, cope with their feelings. They've got all these emotions and feelings and stuff like that. And depending on what age you're dealing with, like for you, instance, Drew, like your kids are pre-puberty, if not starting puberty.
Right.
They've got more emotions and hormones and stuff than they know how to handle. Yeah. Like, and at the youth level, these kids, like the 5-year-olds, they're just now starting school for the first time whenever we get them. We get them right after their very first day of school.
No, we get them before their first day of school.
I know, but I'm saying, like, they go to their first day of school and then they come to the practice.
Oh, yeah.
So they've, they had to deal with, I have to raise my hand whenever I want to talk. I have to do this. I have to do this. Their brains are still processing everything that happened.
Oh, yeah.
And, and at all levels with youth sports, that first day of school, that first week of school, first few weeks of school, they're still getting back in that routine. They're waking up earlier than what they were used to. So their entire routines are changing. And that's something that you've got to prepare for as a coach. Their entire daily routine just got switched. Because, I can say as a parent, I wasn't waking my kid up at 6 a.m. the week before school started to make sure that they were getting used to it again.
Yeah. Well, in closing, my only statement that I want to make is that there's not a lot of things that I enjoy more than being a youth coach. I love coaching
absolutely.
these kids.
There is one thing I enjoy more.
Being a dad.
No? Well,
What?
yeah, that.
Well,
But one thing I enjoy more than that actual overall being the youth coach is when I get to go to the school and volunteer.
yeah.
And I walk in that school and the first thing I hear, they don't remember your name.
Yeah.
Coach, come here, look at this. Or there's Coach. Oh, man, here he comes again.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love it. You see,
Yeah.
as soon as the kid sees you, they just light up.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's when
Yeah.
you know you're doing the right thing. And thankfully, you know, I've been blessed to work with a lot of great coaches. I've worked with a couple that I don't ever want to see again. And, you know, I've been blessed that I have a good crew at the Little Generals, and hopefully I get to continue to stay on down there. And you know, I've been blessed, but that's one of the best feelings. Is I go to this Montcalm Elementary. I volunteer every year. I've been fortunate with my job to get volunteer hours, so I get paid to go down there to hand out candy during Halloween. I was there for a Valentine's Day party. I was there for a fashion show Friday. You know, I have them in a position where I can go to the school, and just to have them little kids come up to you and just hug you or come over here and be like, man, you can't make me run now, coach. I had one tell me that last week. Said, you can't make me run now. The teacher said, oh yeah, he can. So just to have that banner with them kids, and then as soon as they see you, they're just like, hey man, there's coach.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. I love it.
But what I was going to say in my closing statement
Sorry,
there. No, you're good, man. Parents, let coaches coach your kid. If you have a good coach, somebody that's actually got your kid's best interest in their heart, your kid's going to be fine. Let your kid be coachable. Coaches, this is not millions of dollars on the line for you. Nobody's going to even remember 2 years from now that you were the coach of the team that won the championship, if I'm being honest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, do we want to win? Absolutely. We want our kids to be successful. But if you're out there stroking your own ego, get off the field, because you're a part of the problem. Get off the field. Let
Go
people
find one of those positions that'll actually pay you, if that's
Yeah.
going to be the thing. Don't
Yeah,
be a
I mean,
volunteer youth coach.
There's always going to be some middle school, high school, some small college that needs a coach. Go fill out an application. If you're there for your own ego, you need to be away from youth sports. That being said, I know a lot of great youth coaches personally.
absolutely.
I know a lot. Great
Absolutely.
humans actually love these kids. But if you're not one of those people, go take a seat somewhere and let people that actually love these kids coach them.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
all I got on that.
Absolutely. So with that being said, head on over to our Facebook page, give us a follow. Head on over to our YouTube, give us a subscribe. Go to TikTok, give us a follow. Hit all your major podcast outlets. Leave us some 5-star reviews. That's how our podcast gets shared out to everybody. The more you interact, the more you comment, the more you like, the more you share, the more exposure we get. And this was not a direct shot at anybody that we know. It's just the problems that we've seen over years of youth sports. We played youth sports. We've been successful at it. We've been really bad at it. We've coached it. We've had some great teams. We've had some bad teams. So we're not saying we're amazing coaches. We're not saying we're great coaches. I'm just saying I love the kids that I'm around, and I wouldn't change it for anything. And I'm blessed to be able to be with these kids.
For sure.
And with that being said, thank you for joining our rant today on the basement. We hope you enjoy it where it's top level content from the lower level. Thank you guys.
Thank you.